Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Thoughtful Talent Show. I'm Jen Werner from Jen Werner Coaching.
And I'm Chad Ahern from Talent Teams Consulting.
Now, if you've tuned in to our belief episode, you've already met Gina. She is our guest today. If not, I want it to be my honor to have her back and get you acquainted. Gina Brennan is the owner and principal coach of Coach My Strengths. And Gina and I became fast friends in Strengths when we began working and learning together in 2020 when I moved to Florida. This was actually working together in person during COVID. Gina is an Eat to Grow and Gallup certified coach based out of Orlando. She has had a career focused on helping individuals and companies be more successful and profitable. Even though that we know there are many ways that this can be done, Gina does it through people. So her focus is on people development, coaching, training, and developing people to reach their full potential in their role. So our shared belief brought us closer and formed a friendship I know will be lifelong. Gina, welcome back, my friend.
Thank you. It's so great to see you both. Thank you. It's such an honor to be invited back for a second episode. And I'm so excited to talk about my favorite strength, which is positivity.
That's what and that's our plan today. So we've invited Gina back to talk to us about that talent theme of positivity. So before we get started, Gina, which number is best for you? Where does it fall in your top 5?
This is number 5.
Fantastic. Well, it's 17 for me. Chad, where does this fall for you?
I am number 27. So I'm going to be doing, I think I've mentioned this on a few other episodes. I'm going to be doing a lot of learning today. So my learner is clicked in today. But I may not be as contributing quite as much from a positivity lens. It's not a talent theme that I have particularly high. So,
but you'll be asking great questions, I know.
So, yes, and I plan on it.
So to start us off, can you share the Gallup's short description of positivity?
Yes. So people exceptionally talented in the positivity theme have contagious enthusiasm. They are upbeat and can get others excited about what they are doing. Or what they're going to do, I should say. And I can already tell just in the way that Gina was tying just before we just got on. She's all set, ready to go with all sorts of energy and enthusiasm. So I'm loving this already. So thank you very much for coming back.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
And I love that description. They are upbeat and get others excited about what they're going to do. This is Gina. Oh my goodness. So her enthusiasm is definitely contagious. So Gina, this is a great place for you to tell us how this theme shows up for you personally. So we want to get some examples of how you see it play out in your life.
Sure.
More about how it's personally, some of those behaviors and things that others may have noticed in you too.
Sure. And thank you for that great compliment. That's very nice. And Chad, thank you for the introduction and for reading the definition. It resonates with me, and it always has. It's one of the reasons why I love strength so much. And I was exposed to strengths many years ago, but before that, I worked for a consulting company where we had done many assessments. And I want to share this because some assessments kind of put you into a box. Like there's one where you're 4 of possible 16 combinations. And I just remember being in my office thinking wow, that doesn't really make me feel special or great. And then when CliftonStrengths came out and I realized that there's a tool out there. I think everyone's awesome, by the way, and I think everybody has potential. So everyone, I believe, has potential. So when a tool comes out that tells you why you're awesome and gives us science and data to prove to you that you're awesome, I just think that that's absolutely amazing. Yeah. And so for as long as I can remember, I heard Simon recently say that people with high positivity have the ability to celebrate. And it's more than parties. And I love a birthday party and I celebrate my kids' birthdays like nobody's business. My husband will tell you that. But it's more about when you really get to the root of what positivity is, it's celebrating what is versus dwelling on what's been lost or what isn't. It's really the root of it. It's not a mood. It's not happy. But I think it's really important to distinguish the two. Positivity has the ability to get people focused on what is and celebrate the good or see the bright side of things. I also, like, I saw it when I owned the Little Gym franchise. It was a non-competitive gym, and we could probably argue for hours about whether everybody should get a medal or not. But these kids were like 4 months old to 10-year-olds, and it was a non-competitive environment where every kid got a high five for trying their best. And now, not every person would be drawn to own a little gym, but I think I was really drawn to that because I wanted every kid that tried to feel awesome about themselves.
Yeah.
Not everyone's meant to be an Olympic gymnast, but they should still feel great because they did an awesome cartwheel. And so I loved that about that part of my business. So that's the way that it showed up for me. I loved strengths because it helps me help other people see why they have potential and why they're so awesome. So those are some examples of how it shows up in my life. Personally, I think positivity has the ability to see the bright side, even in the greatest darkness. So during COVID, I know that there were people staying up all night watching TV and watching data and watching statistics. And it wasn't that I didn't feel, because I have high empathy, the pain of what the world was going through. But I saw so much bright side to what was happening during the pandemic. I saw that I had the opportunity to meet coaches globally that I would have never met before if it weren't for Zoom.
Yeah.
My kids were 17 and 16 at the time. I had the opportunity to have them home for a month. Like, selfishly, that was so awesome because I got to have family time with my kids and play board games and do things that we would never have done if it weren't for this crazy situation in the world. I saw families get together and cherish that time that they had. Like, when I saw family that I hadn't seen in months, it was like every second mattered, So very personally, like, even in the dark time, I feel like I've naturally always had the ability to see the light in something.
Oh, it's so great.
I can just tell the energy coming out of those answers, like just the idea of revisiting those times.
Yeah,
I can sense is almost re-bringing up the positivity and the possibility.
Yeah.
I didn't know where I was going to drop this question in, but since you've talked a little bit about sort of the darker side, or people that can maybe focus on the negative a little bit, one of the questions I had asked, because I have 3 of these themes that tend to maybe not be quite so positive. So I have deliberative, which is about assessing risk. I have analytical, which can often see things in black and white. So it's either yes or no. And it's either not going well or it's going great. And then I also have harmony, which tends to dissipate dissipate sort of emotional energy. And I'm sensing a great deal of wonderful emotional energy from you. I'm curious if you could talk just for a second about what happens when your beautiful positivity runs across or has to interact with people like myself that might be, hey, these 7 things are going to go wrong if we don't talk about it, deliberative talking, or, hey, the data doesn't support your optimistic point of view, or I don't really care about your emotional energy and contagiousness about this. The practical reality is X. I'm just wondering, like, when you encounter people like me, or even working with me, what does that feel like, or how does that show up?
Well, I think it depends on what other themes that any of us have that contribute to how it shows up. So it's a really, really good question. And it makes me think that it's important also for people to know that just because you don't have positivity highs, like if you look at your full 34, and those of you who are experts of this know probably that this is real and true, but if you have positivity in your 20s or in your 30s, it doesn't mean you're a negative person.
No,
Having positivity low is not negative. It's not an opposite, and it's not an emotion. It's really not. It's a mindset. It's because it's a talent, it's a way that I naturally think, feel, and behave, right? I mean, that's the core of what that is. So how do I encounter it? I think depending on your themes will determine how long you stay with something. Like harmony, you want to find consensus and a win-win. My empathy stays a little bit longer with people who are in a downturn. And because I want to help and I want to, I have 4 blue themes in my top 10. I wake up in the morning caring about people. I want to help people. I want to make a difference in people's lives. So, I'll stay a little while to help because of my empathy, but then I kind of move on. Like I shed the positivity, I try to show the light, and then I keep going because it's not really an influencing theme. It's about helping somebody else see the bright side, but it doesn't always make a shift. And that's okay because it's how I see it.
Okay.
What it does for me though, is that I never even consider like failure as a possibility. And I mean, I take so many risks and I try new things and I do stuff and I've never thought in my life, well, maybe I shouldn't do that because I might fail. And that is part because of my positivity. And it's not unrealistic. It's just that I know I'll pivot even if I do fail. So I don't even consider the word failure because I'll just keep going. I'll learn from it and I'll move a different direction and everything's gonna be fine, So sure, I understand facts and data really matter and they're a contributor to how I make decisions, but I'm gonna probably do it anyway. And I'm gonna learn as I go and everything's gonna be fine because it is. Even if it isn't, it is because I'm gonna make it fine. And some people see that if they don't get close to it, they see it as very Pollyanna, and I've heard that expression a lot. And I know I have to be careful of that. I know I have to make sure people know that they're heard and that I did consider the risk and I did think about the potential downside and I do hear your problems.
Okay.
But I want to help you see the bright side and I want to help you see the light when you only see darkness.
Okay.
And I think that's the ability of positivity. And you probably hear developer in there too, because I'm like, we'll learn as we go,
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I can appreciate those answers. And I thank you very much for helping us think that through because it was I think your point about positivity, having it low is not necessarily negativity. It's just a talent theme you don't access all that often. And so what I also appreciate about your answer was the fact that you at least recognize or respect, say if you and I were in a room with me being heavily deliberative and risk-taking, we'll point people to listen to our deliberative episode about all the risk assessing that talent theme can do. But I think that that's really interesting to hear sort of I take it, I consider it, but then I'm probably going to have to keep moving on anyway. Whereas those of us with probably high deliberative are going to like, well, let's put a pause on that. We're going to stick that in a drawer for 20 minutes or 2 hours.
Yeah.
And
sometimes it's for a really long time. I have a daughter with deliberative and very high. And I think that we complement each other where I can help her jump when she won't. And
nice.
I can help her see that there is a bright side when there isn't. You asked how it shows up in life, but an example that just came to my mind was that we were driving to Tampa and, Tampa's about an hour and a half from our house. And there was a little bit of traffic in the beginning, but as we got closer, I looked down and I said, God, look, Christina, there's like 40 miles to go. We're almost there. And she looked at me and was like, Mom, 40 miles is not almost there. So this is the difference in perspective, right? I mean, my perspective was we're almost there. It's only 40 miles away. Her perspective is that's like an eternity in the car, with my mother. But that's the difference, in our perspective. It doesn't mean she's negative. It's just she doesn't see it that way. She doesn't see her mind doesn't automatically go. If you said, oh, I got into a car accident, my first response is, thank God you're okay, right? And it's not like, oh, I'm so sorry, what happened? Well, it's just the first thing is, I'm so glad you're okay to tell me this, and then whatever it is, my mind just automatically shifts to the positive,
Those are great examples of how you're able to do that, because that's something that I think, I don't have it high either. I wouldn't say it's like terribly low, but just listening to the conversation about deliberative and some of this risk taking and what we do and how we see things. And when I say we, I'm counting Chad, speaking for Chad here too, how we see things is immediately from that place of risk versus seeing the bright side. So I love the idea of partnering, especially with someone who's got some of these other talents that are rooted really deeply in facts and data and maybe can't see the way forward. That knowing that someone who has positivity high it's just natural for them to see that positive way forward, or that silver lining. So I think that was a wonderful way to explain that to us. Thank you very much for sharing that.
Yeah.
So I don't really I hate to go to the negative sides of things, but we're gonna go there. So because we know all themes have a good side and kind of a dark side, we can overuse or maybe underuse our talents from time to time. What would you say are some ways that you believe that positivity may have caused some, like, maybe rubs or some negative impacts on your life?
I think it's impossible for positivity to do anything negative. No, I'm just kidding. Totally kidding. Like, that's the first thing I wrote under both of your questions about negativity. It's like, there isn't any. No, there absolutely is. There's a raw and mature to every theme, as we know, and there's a blind spot that I know I have to look out for. First of all, when people don't understand it, it can drive others crazy that have it. So there are times that my daughter will say, "Mom, I don't need your positivity right now." Right? Because she just wants to be in her situation and really think through it. So I have to be really aware of the people around me, that I want them to know that I hear them, and I'll sit with them in their pain for a minute and acknowledge their pain. And I think sometimes with positivity, we go right to the bright side so much. They're like, "I'm sorry you cracked your head open in a car accident, but I'm so glad you're okay," right? And that could come across like I don't feel it. Now with the empathy, I do, because I have that, but depending on the theme, I know I have to be conscious to sit with people in the moment and feel the pain before I share the bright side. And I also want people to know that I'm hearing them, and that me trying to show you the light doesn't mean I dismiss your sadness. I'm not dismissing your problem. I know it's real, but I want to show you the light and give you hope that there's a brighter tomorrow. I mean, that's I think what we have to be aware of when we have positivity, that people that don't have it might feel very dismissed by our bright side.
Okay.
Gina, on that point, would you almost tie it to a lot of the recent writings around sort of the toxic positivity? I'm trying to remember exactly how it's sort of this bringing it.
Those two words do not compute.
No. So it's this whole idea, from what I've picked up, and I wrote down very quickly from Wikipedia this description, because I'd heard it and I was wondering if it was going to come up in this conversation about sort of, it's an emotional management approach that doesn't fully acknowledge negative emotions, particularly anger and sadness, and then therefore it has the effect of minimizing other people's abilitiness or willingness to discuss and disclose other feelings they might be having about a situation or a relationship, a team dynamic. And so I was starting to hear you kind of nibble at the edges of that when you're saying that if you gloss right over it and solely focus on the positivity, oh, look, you're alive, but oh, you've got a concussion, sort of ignoring the concussion and be like, oh, you're alive, kind of dismisses the rest of that conversation. Is that kind of what you're talking about? And I'm not saying your dark side is toxic positivity,
no,
but that's what it sounded like you're kind of nibbling at the edges of.
I haven't read the book, so I can't tell you. I can't even speak to it with a very well-informed opinion. But what I can tell you is, for me personally, I've learned I have to look out for it and take time to pause and acknowledge the cut on your head, and then tell you how thankful I am that you're okay. And you know, I just have an eternal hope that there's always a brighter tomorrow, and there's always something that we can do. And listen, deliberative makes great decisions. they make great decisions, and they're usually never wrong because they've thought through everything, right?
Mhm.
So if my activator combined with my positivity makes me jump, right, and take risks, I don't even think about the possibility of failure, because, and it's not because I never fail. I make mistakes all the time. It's just that I look at it like opportunities to learn and to pivot, and I'm not afraid of it. But that's just me personally. So I can't speak to the toxic positivity. I've worked with a lot of leaders who have positivity in their top, and they know they have to be self-aware of pausing enough to feel the pain and really hear what other people are saying. Even with my own kids, I've learned I've had to do that. Like, if there's a real issue, I have to make sure I'm really listening and hearing and slowing down enough to stay with them in that moment before showing them the bright side.
Nice.
That's thank you for bringing that up, Chad. That's a great. It's kind of a buzzword for what we're seeing, but I'm seeing some parallels to that too. But then also understanding that Gina's coming from this place of really wanting to stop and sit with the moment before, like, she sees the bright side already, but wants to really dive into like seeing what's going on, and then like bringing them back to, but everything's okay, or everything's going to be okay. So I love hearing that positivity in you, Gina, and your immediate response was, there isn't one to the negative sides. It's so good. So let's
can I just throw something else into this? I just want to point out, because other listeners, our listeners to some of the other episodes, will recognize that power of the pause that Gina's talking about. And I just wanted to highlight that, because I think it came up in a very action-oriented, I think we're actually talking about activator, and having a moment of pause before doing something. There's a real sort of power to that. And I think, Gina, you're highlighting here again the power of that pause of, hey, I can see the bright side, I can see the sun coming up over the horizon, but I'm going to pause with where I am at before moving forward with somebody or my own actions. And there's a power to that. So I wanted to quick highlight that before we move over to the, I think Jen wanted to take us to the positive side, which I'm sure is where Gina wants to be too.
Yeah, well, and there's one other negative potential, I think, which is, it's because it's a relationship building theme and not influencing. I'm sure you've met somebody, and there's been a few people in my life who are like this, that every time you say, how are you? Right away it goes to the wah wah, right? They want to tell you like 20 things that are wrong and how awful things are. And like, I have found that does not draw me. And in fact, after time of talking to somebody like that, I usually end up kind of just moving on from people who have that, because I'm drawn to, it's not that I'm not drawn to negativity or positivity. It's just that I think it can hurt in that if I don't realize that this is the way of thinking, it makes me move on from relationships sometimes. That's all.
I'm so glad that you've not moved on from me. I will say, from time to time.
I don't find you that way.
Thank God, because from time to time, as you said it, I was feeling like little pangs of, oh, that might be me. Wah wah. What's not perfect? What's not happening in the speed I want it to happen versus like how much I'm getting done or anything else. So, I'm definitely, you've coached me that I need to be respectful of that. Your positivity doesn't want to hear my negative stuff first.
Well, I mean, I think again, that's the superpower, and why strength is so natural for somebody with positivity, is that our mind goes right to, well, what's right about what you did this week? And yes, we didn't hit our goals, but what did we do well that we can learn from and repeat? That's easy and natural for somebody who has that.
Yeah, so good.
Nice.
Okay, let's talk positive sides. So tell us some ways that you feel this theme has really benefited your life and your work.
Okay. I don't get discouraged very easily. Nice. And I'm willing to take risks, and I'm willing to try new careers and new things. For sure, positivity is the reason why I very conscientiously chose to be a Gallup certified strengths coach, because this tool to me is my opportunity to tell people how awesome they are and to provide hope for companies that they can have a brighter tomorrow because of their employee engagement and their employees understanding their superpowers. And like, to me, that's all positivity. That's all showing what's right with people. And so I think it's really helped my career. It's helped me with my success as a coach. I don't know, that's the best way for me to describe it. I think because I've already shared with you like my experience with the Little Gym, and even when I was a frontline coach in the car rental industry, like my positivity provided hope for people that there's a brighter tomorrow and that they can do this. And my belief in them combined with that positivity is like, it's okay to try it. Let's take a risk and try something new, and you're going to learn, you're going to grow, and you're going to benefit your life from it. Like, I think I'm pretty good at telling the benefits of things. And so whether that was the Little Gym, whether that was in the consulting company I used to work for, or my future clients, it's, you know, I paint a picture of a brighter tomorrow.
I love it.
Love it. Yeah, that's great.
Love it.
Gina, we've already started to touch on this a little bit. You've talked a little bit about your belief. You talked a little bit about your developer, even your empathy. I'm curious about.
They don't really work alone, do they?
No.
It's like,
No, and that's exactly where we're going next. Because
so
one of the questions that Jen and I have wanted to start incorporating into to some of our podcasts going forward is this idea of our talents are never operating in silo, right? They're always engaging with each other in our actions, in the way we think. So I'm just wondering, this is sort of a two-part question. I'll give you the positive side first, because I know you like that. What are some of the themes that do add to your success of the positivity? Which one do you find yourself maybe coupling positivity with more frequently than others? And maybe if there's one that you've already mentioned that you want to take, another level deeper, would be interested to hear what you have to say about that.
okay.
Look at already a smile. She's already thinking like these are some great combos.
It's such a great question. It really is, and it wasn't on the sheet, so I didn't get a chance to really think through this first, but naturally, I think developer, because it's one of my strongest. It's number one. I just see potential in everyone. I don't think anybody, even when I work with clients and they have frontline employees and they're like, oh, I don't know that you're going to really be able to make a difference to that person. I'm just always like, what? I see potential in that person. Everybody can learn. Everybody can grow. Nobody wants to suck at their job. Nobody wants to be disengaged. And, I have this boat picture with a cartoon. Nobody wants to be the guy on the back of the boat that looks like this, that hates his life. People want to be engaged intrinsically. And I just, between developers seeing opportunity and really believing that every single human has potential, and my positivity, I think those two combined and just see that so naturally. And then of course belief plays in there because it does, and also significance, wanting to make a difference in people's lives and wanting to leave a legacy that's positive. I think those all go together. And I mentioned before, empathy allows me to stay long enough to feel what they're going through. And I do deeply feel it, and then shift to, let me tell you the bright side I see, or let me tell you why there's no risk, So they all go together. Activator 2, it's my number 6, and it sometimes runs over 1 through 5, but activator and positivity combined allows me to jump in head first and say, okay, even if I hit a rock, I'll be fine. I'll swim away. I'll learn from it and I'll never do that again. So
excellent.
Yeah. Deliberative probably says, wait, don't jump because there might be a rock. And I'm like, oh, it's okay. If there's a rock, we'll be okay. It will feel pain, and then we'll keep going, and we'll never do that again. I mean, we'll learn from it and we'll be better next time.
Nice.
So it's just how I can't help think. I can't help but think this way because that's just who I am.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask the next question. I'm not sure this, just given what you've already shared, and beautifully so, this question may or may not have a place, but I wanted to put it out there because you did talk about sort of managing your positivity, that power of the pause. we've talked in some of our other episodes about themes that can get off rails, and then often it's another theme that helps us rein it back in. So, for example, intellection can think for a really long time and ponder, or input can dig really deep and keep going and going. But maybe somebody that has responsibility, they're looking at deadlines, so it helps them bring that input back. I'm wondering if there's an analogy or a similar situation with positivity. Is there one that maybe keeps your positivity from going completely Pollyanna all the time? And in which case, which one is it? Or if it's a couple of them, which ones help you make sure that you're not looking at all, rainbows and stars and unicorns all the time?
That's funny, because that's not one of the images I thought of when you were asked about the image. Okay, that's a really good question. So my first thinking theme is learner. So I think when I've learned about the potential blind spot, and I've heard from my own family members the things that have gotten in my way with it, when they've had an issue and I haven't given it enough time, I've learned from it, and I've felt that pain, and I've said, from now on, I'm going to make sure I take time to do this. And so my belief makes me control it. I also think that my restorative is also like wanting to make things whole, but I also see brokenness very easily. So I think restorative and positivity are sometimes in conflict with each other, because then I think, well, wait, why am I seeing problems? How do I see problems when I'm so used to seeing the bright side of things?
Yeah.
And I think that's restorative. Restorative sometimes makes me point out what's broken, and I see what's broken very quickly.
I love that.
That's really good.
Yeah, the seeing I think you said the brokenness, but then also translating that right also into potential, which I've my analyticals keeps picking up that word that I don't know how many times you said it, but my analyticals like, yep, that's the 14th time she said that is in a good way. That potential is there, and I think I hear a little bit of your developer coming in there, but the positivity that we can reach that potential is really nice. So that's a really interesting combo that I hadn't thought of before. Restorative and positivity kind of working in tandem. So
so good.
Yeah, thank you.
Great question. Sure.
So to dig a little deeper with this question about these dynamics and things that we've witnessed either in ourselves or in others who might have positivity, in your experience with your clients, Gina, are there any unique ways that you've seen the positivity talent come out differently than your own? And Chad, I'll ask you the same.
That is a great question. Let me give that some thought. When I think about the clients that I work with that have high positivity, what we've always tried to channel them in is to how did they provide hope for a brighter tomorrow, right? When we think of the 4 needs of followers. And it's funny because as you teach leaders the 4 needs of followers, innately, some of them are really good at certain things depending on their talents. They can easily provide those things, but I think leaders with positivity easily provide hope. It's just innate. They can't help but provide hope out of the 4, and yet I've also seen that when something is broken, when they don't achieve something, when we don't hit our goal for Friday and they have their team meetings, they are really comfortable in the space of, well, what did we do well? And let's really look there and see what we can duplicate. And we still have to look at the mistake, and we have to still look at what went wrong, but the way we're going to fix it is through our strengths. And I think leaders that really embrace, I think leaders who have positivity have an easier way of embracing that framework of a discussion and seeing what's right as not just to be Pollyanna and let's tell everybody how great they are. It's let's pull apart what's right so we can magnify it and duplicate it and repeat it so that we have continuous, greatness and repeat those behaviors that we want to see more of. And so I just think the people who have it maybe lower have a harder time doing it. They make it a habit and they do it, but the ones who have it high, it's just automatic for them.
Yeah.
Sure. Chad, do you have any experiences with any of your past clients or others that you know that have positivity?
Yeah, so it's actually interesting. I was reflecting all the way back to one of my very first coaching clients almost 5-6 years ago now, but I'll never forget it, because when we were doing a CliftonStrengths debrief session, it was his number one, and it was actually one of those talents that was so close to him he couldn't actually see it. And so I only bring that up. It's not so much a unique demonstration of it or anything drastically different than what Gina is pointing out, but I want to use this opportunity to maybe use this as an example of why it's sometimes helpful to work with a coach or to have a debrief session, because this was essentially his sort of bridge of nose moment. It's that theme that was sitting, right here. You can't see this spot yourself, but if you have somebody to reflect off of, a human mirror to a certain extent, it took that experience for him to realize that he was providing this enthusiasm and, contagious enthusiasm and getting people excited. And, like Gina has highlighted, this is a very keeping things a little bit more of the potential and where's the opportunity and what is going right. I think he had a natural ability to do that. It's just he hadn't really processed that or really thought about it. And it was so intense, but so right in front of him, he couldn't see it until somebody else pointed it out. And that was just a really unique experience for me as a coach to have that conversation, but also to see the light bulb go on for him of, oh yeah, you're right. I am doing this and this is where it's coming from, but I didn't have the language or I didn't have the awareness around it. So that's the only real distinct experience I've had with positivity. I've had a few other people have in their top 5, but all of them kind of fall into the general mold that Gina has painted for us. So.
Yeah, I think I've found some coupling of strengths in those that I've coached that have positivity. Quite a few of them also have developer high. So I think it's interesting to see the two of those work together, because I almost feel like in the people that I know who have both positivity and developer, like Gina, I can't peel them apart from one another. I can't tell which is the positivity and which is the developer in her, to say like, oh, that's your positivity talking, or oh, that's your developer, I hear, because they do seem so very intertwined. And that's been very similar in others that I've coached as well with that coupling of themes, as they say.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So since we're talking about images and Jen's trying to peel apart Velcro here, I want to move and ask, particularly Gina, if there are any particular images that come to mind, as people either are maybe starting their strengths journey or just are trying to associate, what does this theme kind of mean? A lot of us are visual learners or visual people. Are there particular images, whether it's a household object or something in pop culture or a scene from a play, whatever it is, we'd be interested to hear what you have some thoughts on, or what images might people keep in mind when they think about this theme.
Okay. So the first image that came to mind is a light. And it's boring and it's not pop culture and it's not,
it's
it's not gonna be on TikTok or anything, but it's like, this is what I think of when I think of positivity. It's showing a light where there's darkness, and that's what I think of. The other thing I think of is my logo, which is the magnifying glass, because you're holding up the mirror to somebody to show them their superpowers, and Strengths does that. And I look at it like we help you magnify your strengths and the brightness of somebody. The pointiness of the star, like that whole thing's in my logo because I want to magnify everything that's good in a person and help them.
Nice.
Oh, that was awesome.
Yeah. Now I understand your logo a lot more.
Well,
good.
And I always thought it was like the finding it, the search for it, as opposed to like the magnifying. So it's that different lens that we see these things through. I love that. So good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So good.
Maybe if only I could explain it to the world.
Well, now, I mean, we're one step closer.
Yeah.
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 Awesome.
Jen, I'm gonna pose the question to you.
Um,
What images come to mind for you around
I
positivity?
immediately went to the like glass half full, right? Versus like the glass half empty.
Okay.
Oh,
Or
good
you know,
one.
like, you know, the silver lining in the clouds. Those were the two that I always put paired with positivity, because they're what I tend to see out of those who have it. That they always look at life like the glass is half full and not half empty. So yeah.
Nice.
How about you, Chad? Do you have any that you
So-
had in your mind?
Yeah. So it was weird when it first popped in my head, and I don't know whether this will resonate with people. I am going to go to a pop culture reference, and maybe it's because positivity is number 27 for me. But I oddly thought of Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool for the reason that he's had this horrible thing happen to him, but yet he seems to make light of it in just about every scene. And I know that's part who Ryan Reynolds is. And so I thought maybe if people just want to keep a person in mind, other than our wonderful guest, Gina, that Ryan seems to have that sort of persona, and that I wouldn't be surprised if positivity was one of his themes. Purely a
that's so
guess.
cool.
Not, what's that?
That's really cool.
Yeah.
I like that.
So that was the one I was going to throw out there and see if it stuck to anybody.
You should send him an assessment and see if the positivity is in
Yeah.
his top 5.
And when you said Ryan Reynolds, I immediately thought about Ted Lasso. And, you know, we talked about him last time in Belief, but, you know, that character, he exudes positivity in every way.
Yeah.
Awesome.
No, I think those are great. Yeah.
Really great. Okay, so now let's switch this. We went from talking about how it shows up for you personally, how you know, others could see maybe some of these behaviors of yours in positivity, and let's switch this now to talk about the impact positivity might have on a team, whether that's from a team leader's perspective or a team member. Can you share with us a few ways that you could see that positivity might like pull down a team? Whether
Pull
like
down?
yeah,
Maybe
like
No.
I know, right? I know.
So I'm gonna
No.
if I can help Jen out with the
Yeah,
question.
rephrase it.
So I think it's not so much pull down, because I obviously picked up on the thread that, you know,
We don't.
as Gina was joking, there is no, you know, dark side or negativity to this.
I'm just kidding.
But I think can positivity potentially get in the way of
There you go.
of a team success, or, you know, come in strong and maybe not be aware of, you know, take the eyes off the ball on some of the risks that might be coming down the pike, or something along that line. She's blown off this question. She's like, there's no negativity to positivity.
I don't know, because it's not an influencing theme, and it's not a strategic thinking theme. Like it's a relationship building theme. So I've been part of teams, I've led teams, and I've watched leaders who lead teams with it, and I can't think of a particular example where that could be, unless, like you were describing, the potential toxic part of it. If a leader just really doesn't consider any risk and just only sees bright side and doesn't slow down to hear their people, that's bad no matter what, right? So I just think that it inspires hope. It doesn't make you make bad decisions. It just inspires hope that there's a bright side note. Even if we make, like, the idea of a growth culture is saying we celebrate mistakes. Well, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard to somebody who doesn't, right? Celebrate mistakes, because those are opportunities to learn. This is what we're teaching our leaders, right? Celebrate mistakes. Why? Because we want to gloss over everything? No, because a mistake helps us be better tomorrow. And so if we criticize and we beat people down over their mistakes, then you're not going to grow and it's not going to improve, right? But if we celebrate the mistake, people will be more innovative. They won't be afraid to be wrong. It's powerful, and it's not fake, and it's not like, oh, we're just going to focus on what's good. It's let's celebrate it from the standpoint that it gives us a chance to be better and learn. And that's what developer wants to constantly learn and grow and help people continuously grow.
Yeah.
So I don't. Sorry, I can't see the bad side of that.
Sorry.
And I asked the question specifically because I have an experience and have been in an experience with a leader who had positivity high, and they just flat out did not want to hear the bad stuff. We're not talking about it. We're not looking at it. We're going to gloss right over it. We're going to run right past it. And we're only talking about the positive. And in that case, that leader regularly made people who had questions, who took longer to get on board, who didn't see the path as clearly as the leader did with the positivity high, they really struggled to be part of the team and almost felt completely pushed out by the leader with the positivity and unheard. And it's what I heard from you when we started talking about the potential negative sides or some things, like you said, that you needed that pause to really let your empathy, your developer, see the person and hear the pain before we move on to what the positive side was. And
hear the risk. Like, let's consider the risk.
Absolutely. And
that's important.
And I think that's where I was going, where the question was coming from for me, especially because I've had that experience, and being someone with deliberative high, with belief high, with responsibility high. I'm happy to rush right into things with my activator, but we need to make sure it's safe. And, you know, I really do believe people need to be heard, that it's so important for all of us to know that we're heard. And in those instances, people were unheard and they were left behind and they were hurt in that moment. So from my personal perspective with that, that's where I saw it might have been a little more on the immature side, or maybe not really quite using the talent and learning some of the things that you've learned through using your positivity, that you know that it could be hurtful if you're pushing past the hurt or the hard stuff, because we want to just see the good in everything.
That's a really good example, Jen. Thank you for sharing that.
It's painful. So I did feel like I wanted to share it because I know that's not the intent of the person with positivity, that's never the intent. We're looking at making things better and doing the best and celebrating. So it's just missing that other little piece that you brought to it. So I'm glad you shared that with us too. So then, coming from a positive side, then what is the best contribution of positivity with someone as a team leader and someone as a team member? What do you think the best contribution to a team would be?
I mean, I think I've already described that a little bit, but I would have to say hope.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hope for, a better tomorrow, a better team, a better outcome next week, like just seeing and providing hope for other people that things can be better. And again, that growth mindset of not instilling the fear of making mistakes, and we're all imperfect and we're all going to make mistakes, and it's not that we gloss over them or we hide them or we fake them. We're all going to make mistakes, but it's looking at a mistake like it's an opportunity to learn, instead of like you're a failure and you're an idiot and you messed up. It's like, what can we learn from this and how can we be better tomorrow? And I think that people who have this talent probably have the ability to do that easier for a team.
Yeah, great. Is that even from a team member's perspective? Are they able to? Does that light shine? Like
I think so.
bright enough.
They're the
to
human
pull the
glue
team
at
along?
times,
Awesome.
right? I mean, they're
the human glue.
They're the blue themes. They're the human glue, so they help people stay, connected and feeling what's good. And I think their contribution to each other is keeping the team in a state of hope and positive. I mean, I guess I'm going back to the word positive, but
I like it.
Showing the light to each other, right?
Yeah.
So
I love that human glue. That might be the next image there too.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's so awesome. Well, I mean, many blue themes contribute to be the human glue, right? I mean,
Sure.
I even think one of our past guests, Damon Zakakis, mentioned that the blue is glue. So it's all the blue relationship building themes that tend to hold those people together. And I think you continue to come back to the idea of hope and the idea of not failing but learning, sort of learning forward or leaning forward, falling forward. I think that's a quote. I've been trying to remember the quote as you've been talking that relates to this. I think it's Simon Sinek, is there aren't failures, there's just failing forward. They're not failing forward, falling forward.
Yeah.
You're faltering a little bit, you understand, where you bumped yourself, and then you take that lesson forward. And that's definitely one of the things that I've heard throughout what you've shared, Gina. So I appreciate that.
Sure.
Speaking of sort of, big themes or big ideas that we've talked about throughout this episode, just as we start to wrap up, I am curious if, in addition to your ideas around hope and the idea around not just saying failure, but seeing opportunities to grow going forward and seeing the brighter side of things, are there any other significant sort of key takeaways that you think people should really know about this theme? If we were to say, cut this last 5 minutes and just make this the sort of intro or the sound bite for this theme, what are the 2 or 3 things that you really think people should know about this theme?
I think it's really important to recognize the difference between a talent and a mood, and distinguish the difference. I really do. I think because I've had friends before who said, "Oh, nobody's that happy. How can you be happy all the time?" Doesn't mean people with positivity don't have problems. Doesn't mean that they don't have things that get in their way. It's like we make a quick choice in our mind to think of what's good and to focus on what we have, not what we've lost. So I think about my dad, he lived to be 91. When he passed away a couple of years ago, my mind, I mean, of course, I was horribly sad and I'll miss him dearly for the rest of my life. But my mind went to how lucky we were that we had him for that long, how many holidays we had, how much time he got to be with my kids, how lucky my kids were that they got to be 20 and still have a grandparent, So that's where my mind went. And I think right away, when people have positivity, their mind quickly shifts. It's a quick choice. It's a quick choice to what's the bright side. And it's not even something I consciously can control or help myself do. It's this power to think of what we did have versus what we've lost.
Nice.
And whether it's a problem, the car accident or whatever it is, like, let's focus on what is, not what was it or what we missed out on. So I think that's the essence of what positivity is. And by being able to make that quick shift and point it out to other people, it can provide hope for people around you.
Oh, thank you so much, Gina,
awesome.
for sharing. Yeah,
thank you.
I think just in this little episode to get together today, you have, and I'm going to speak for you too, Chad, if you don't mind. Like, I think we've learned a different side of positivity that we didn't know. After actually getting to dig in deeper with you and understand more about where this is coming from and what you see, and that distinguishing the difference between the talent and a mood. Wow, that's huge. Because I do think that we all look at positivity as the word. It's a mood, and
like it's this fake thing that doesn't really,
right. So I think it's so wonderful that you pointed that out, that you gave us examples that we can understand and like, okay, it's not a mood, it's a choice. So thank you so much for joining us today. It's been wonderful having you with us.
Yay, thank you. Thank you all so much. It's such a privilege to be back again. So and so much fun talking to you both, and always learned so much by going through this journey. So I appreciate it.
I'll just add my thanks, because as I said at the beginning, this is number 27 for me. And I definitely lead with much more of a deliberative, analytical kind of mindset. And I'm realizing that I need people like you who have positivity in my life, but also that when I start to encounter people with positivity and they're looking at the bright side, and I'm going, well, wait a minute, what about all these risks over here? Now I have a much better understanding of their sort of point of view. So I want to say thank you and appreciate that. That's a little selfish on me. I hope our listeners are thinking about the same sort of thing of, how could somebody like Gina with positivity, whether it's somebody else in their lives that also has positivity, what can they be bringing and understand that quick mind shift that you were just talking about, that quick choice. I think that was a really great key takeaway. So
thank you.
I'm gonna extend my thanks as well. So
my pleasure, and thank you both, because you're both great partners for me, because you help me also consider risks and really think about what the potential is of those risks. So and this is why we love strength so much, is because we can appreciate what each other brings and lean on each other at times that we need it. So anytime you need a little dose of positivity, give me a call, and I'll be leaning on you for your deliberative and helping me make some good decisions in the future.
Nice. Well, we appreciate it. So I get the honors of sort of taking us out here. I know Jen's going to help me a little bit. We're just going to mention to our listeners, if you've enjoyed episode with Gina, she was on our belief episode, but we also have future episodes coming. So if you'd like to support us, we encourage you to leave us a comment or review on whichever platform that you listen to us. We also encourage you to offer any comments and make sure to also click that wonderful subscribe button, especially in our YouTube channels. Jen and I both have our YouTube where we share this video. And also remember that you can find us on either Acast or YouTube. So if you like the podcast, go to Acast. If you like to watch us all have this wonderful conversation, check us out on YouTube.
Yeah. If you want to get in touch with either of us, you can find our contact information and ways to reach out on our show notes, as well as if you want to reach out to Gina and get her insight on some things, or maybe want to talk positivity or any of her other top talents, or even just want to grow with Gina, you can find her contact information in the show notes as well.
So come grow with me.
Come grow with Gina. So I'm Jen Werner of Jen Werner Coaching, encouraging you to be uniquely you.
And I'm Chad Ahern from Top Teams Consulting, encourage you to keep playing to your strengths. And until next time, we wish everybody a great day.
Bye-bye. Thank you all.